Hello and welcome everyone to this event today, and thank you for celebrating the fourth day of the GW4 Open Research Week with us. My name is Kate Eric Page and I am the Research Data Librarian at the University of Bath. Just to let you know, we will be recording the event today, and please use the chat and Q&A function if you have questions. It's a short session today, but we'll do our best to get to those questions. And so, today's session, using open access to meet global social challenges, will introduce the work of Bristol University Press in support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. At this event, the 2025 winner of the Early Career Publishing Prize will be announced, which is organised jointly by Bristol University Press and Bristol University Library Services. This event will be led by Katie Foxall, Global Engagement Coordinator, and Victoria Pittman, Editorial Director, both of Bristol University Press. And it'll also be led by Zostra Beckles, Research Information Analyst, and also Susie Cheek, Associate Director of Research and Scholarly Communication, both at Library Services at the University of Bristol. And without further ado, I will hand over to them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kate. Can everyone hear me all right? Brilliant. Oh, I can see somebody's sharing slides, which is just what I was about to ask. I think Kate's covered it really well in terms of the session today. So I suppose what I would just say, I should introduce myself. I'm Susie, here from Bristol University Library Services. I'll be handing over in a moment to Katie from Bristol University Press. But yes, we're going to talk here a little bit about the work that the press is doing in support of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and some of the exciting and progressive ideas that they've had about thinking about how open access can support in this area. And we are going to be announcing towards the end of the session the winner of our Early Career Publishing Prize 2025. It's the second year we've run this prize. But before that, we'll have a chance to hear from last year's prize winner, who's also joining us today to hear how things have been going after the last year or so. But now I think I'm going to hand over to Katie.
Thank you, Susie and Kate, and thank you to everyone for attending this event. We really appreciate the chance to tell you all about Bristol University Press and how we're using open access to meet global social challenges. So just to give you a bit more of an idea about the press, or BUP. So along with our imprint Policy Press, we're a UK-based academic publisher committed to publishing the highest quality international scholarship in the social sciences and aligned disciplines with a focus on global social challenges. So we've been publishing both academic books and journals for the last 30 years, and we want our to make a really positive contribution and have impact beyond academia. As a non-profit university press with a social justice mission, we provide an internationally respected platform for the global scholarly community to disseminate work that matters. BEP champions evidence-informed, bold thinking that aims to address critical issues which people face around the world, and so extend our understanding of society. We publish around 300 books a year, and we have 22 journals on topics ranging from global political economy, policy and politics, and gender-based violence, to social work research, global ageing, and poverty. You can see some of our upcoming titles here, such as Control, Hate, Delete, which examines how a collection of male supremacists have turned their niche viewpoints into a mainstream movement, and Miseducation, which explores inequality, education, and the working classes in the UK and globally. BEP is a key component to achieving the University of Bristol's mission to make a positive impact locally, nationally, and globally by addressing society's greatest challenges through education, innovative research, and the value which is placed on excellence, inclusivity, and partnership. So, as we're all aware, our social world is rapidly changing with the effects of climate change, continued poverty, and other forms of inequality, the development of new technologies such as AI, and mounting political unrest. These geopolitical risks have turned the world into a frightening, unpredictable place with far-reaching consequences across the globe. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, were created to tackle these critical issues and act as an urgent call to action for a better and more sustainable future for all, aiming to transform the world by 2030. Bristol University Press were the first university press to sign up to the UN SDG Publishers Compact, which aims to accelerate progress towards achieving the goals. Can you move on, please? BEP's global social challenges are informed by and linked to the SDGs. We created our innovative publishing programme to cut across disciplines and fields and focus on the social aspects of the challenges that we face. Unlike the SDGs, they are not time limited, but will continue to direct our publishing through to 2030 and beyond. We focus on 16 global social challenges, including conflict, security and peace, climate change, energy and sustainability, democracy, power and governance, and poverty, inequality and social justice. Through our tagging system, researchers, academics and policymakers can browse all our books and journals by global social challenges themes or SDGs on our digital platform and break traditional subject silos, enabling truly interdisciplinary research. It's only by publishing high-quality peer-reviewed research, which is key to informing policy and enabling the practical implementation of evidence-based ideas, that we can understand and react to these global social challenges and achieve real-world change. Our entire publishing programme exemplifies SDG 17, partnerships with the goals, enabling the sharing of knowledge needed to help build a better world across and for the Global South and North. Our flagship open access journal, next slide please, Global Social Challenges Journal, is the first social science-based journal addressing these global challenges and is dedicated to publishing content that represents marginalised, minority and Indigenous worldviews. The journal facilitates the publication of multi-, inter and transdisciplinary research internationally within and beyond academia, also engaging with research from humanities, arts and STEM. GSCJ publishes work that critically engages with questions of equity in North-South research partnerships and reflects our deep commitment to diversity and to decolonising the knowledge ecosystem. We were driven to make this journal open access due to the importance of the topic and the need for this research to be widely accessible with no financial barriers. This has been made possible by generous support from the University of Bristol. To contribute towards tackling global social challenges as an academic publisher, it's not just the content which has to be targeted and relevant, it's also how we publish. The international publishing community is currently not equitable, with Global South authors being excluded, leading to the loss of vital research on which to build evidence-based policy in the areas of the world which are most affected by climate change, poverty, and health inequities. In order to help maximise impact for regional communities at the same time as advancing global discussions, we recently launched a mentorship programme for early career researchers in the Global South and diasporas. Our intent with this programme is to stimulate further reflection on how younger social scientists in the Global South identify and process contemporary global social challenges, and to learn more about how context, historical, cultural, political, and economic, may have a direct bearing on what we deem significant, and on how we perceive and attempt to resolve these challenges. We are currently seeking funding to run GSCJ on a diamond, that's fee-free for both authors and readers, open access basis, which would provide a sustainable infrastructure for its diverse community of authors, editors, and readers. Bristol University Press also has a blog, Transforming Society, which includes insightful articles, engaging podcasts, and concise policy briefings, which tackle real-world issues and provide valuable perspectives, helping to demystify complex topics. Next slide. With the current political climate in the US, including mass censorship and book bans, it's even more important than ever that the results of high-quality research in areas such as racial and gender justice are made available to all with no barriers. The widespread prevalence of misinformation is a global problem, with more than half of respondents describing themselves as not knowing which information to believe in or who to trust in UNESCO's The World in 2030 survey. Open access to trustworthy content is essential to combat this. Making the results of academic research open access leads to significantly higher usage. BEP's open access journal's content achieves over 6 times more downloads than articles behind the paywall. They're also 70% more likely to be cited. 7 times more people read our books if they're made open access. Many research funders now recognise the significant benefits of open access publishing and have an open requirement as part of the terms and conditions of their research funding. However, making content open access can carry high costs, which are often unfeasible for not-for-profit publishers like BUP and for authors who lack funding. Next page, please. We have established the Global Social Challenges Development Fund to enable us to sustainably redress these inequalities in the publication of social sciences research and work towards building a fairer research ecosystem. As well as making more of our content open access, the fund will be used to support authors in the Global South to publish their work and contribute to the worldwide evidence base on an equal footing by providing editing support, translation, and publication skills training. It's not enough just to make content open access, however. Discoverability both online and offline is key. Ensuring widespread engagement means that research achieves essential real-world impact. BEP provides the same service to authors of open access content as we do for our other books and journals. We work with authors to organise book launches, panel events and seminars, including standalone events in bookshops or universities, as well as in venues like the Royal Courts of Justice and the House of Commons, and sessions at established conferences or literary festivals. We send copies of our books to politicians and policymakers in working groups and committees addressing particular policy issues, and we have a reputation for high-profile national and international media coverage. BEP's publishing programme has been crucial to many social justice initiatives, such as helping to change the law to get cyberflashing recognised as a criminal act, serving as a key campaign tool in the movement to legalise abortion in Northern Ireland, forming the basis of anti-poverty policies across the EU, and breaking down barriers between academia and real-world problems, including mass incarceration in the US, gender-based violence in Iran, and climate change and migration in the Pacific. Next page. The challenges in politics, welfare, education, and beyond can feel overwhelming, but they also open the door to hope and fresh perspectives. BUP won Independent and Academic Publisher of the Year in 2024 because of our dedication to excellence, innovation, and diversity in publishing. The judges acknowledge that our books really do make a difference. Here at BUP, we are driven by the fact that only 17% of the Sustainable Development Goals are on track. By opening up access to the latest research on the most pressing global social challenges, BUP makes a significant contribution to building a roadmap out of current global crises and ensuring a better future for us all. So I'm going to hand over now
back to Susie.
To Susie.
Thank you. Do you want to pause for any questions there, or do we do all questions at the end?
We're happy to take questions now if there are any.
Yeah, I'll just do the 30 seconds of dead air to see if there are any immediate hands. Otherwise, I'll let people mull things over a little bit and we can come back at the end. I'm not seeing any, so okay. So just to introduce the prize itself a little bit, it's kind of come out as a result of the relationship, I think a growing sort of closer and stronger relationship between the library and press here at Bristol University. And I know this is something that's happening at many different institutions across the UKHE. And I think specifically developed from conversations around the Open Up initiative, which some people might remember. It was a Diamond initiative aimed at early career researchers, and it was run as part of the Open Access Community Framework that GISC kind of provides the umbrella infrastructure for, sort of public promotion for, and there were other university presses involved with that, Liverpool, UCL and others. But I think the conversations we had at Bristol, it just was a kind of spark of an idea of how we could use this prize to celebrate the work of our early career researchers here and encourage and promote routes to open access publishing. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to do that, although we've just been hearing about the work that BUP are doing to think really quite radically about ways to open up routes to publishing and to think about a research ecosystem which is moving towards something globally equitable, but it's still true that open access publishing often comes with a not inconsiderable price tag, which can favour established researchers undertaking funded research. So we felt it was important to offer opportunities for early career researchers for that reason. And we're not the only ones thinking in this way. So Leeds and Sheffield have also run prizes, very similar prizes. In fact, I'd go so far as to say we're quite indebted to them for thinking about the general approach and the criteria for how we've run the prize. The prize itself consists of some prize money, as with the other Open Research Prize, which is being run by GW4 as part of this week. And also some free books from BUP, and also the opportunity to be guided and supported through the full commissioning process by Bristol University Press, and then with any ultimate costs for open access publishing being paid for by University of Bristol Library Services. I'd just like to say a thank you to this year's panel. I was a member of the panel myself, but I'm not thanking myself, but Victoria was, so thanks to Victoria. Victoria's editorial director at BUC. We also had Patrick Capps, a professor of international law, and Helen Simpson, who's associate pro-vice chancellor for research and innovation in the Faculty of Arts, Law and Social Sciences, both here at Bristol University and both on BUP's editorial board. And we were really looking to test the strength of the monograph proposal itself, and this is very much based on BUP's standard form to test the shape and coherence of the overall project. Especially looking at ideas in those submissions of how to convert the thesis into a monograph, which is such an important part of what last year's prize winner and this year's prize winner will be thinking about. So we wanted to emphasise the importance of that. There was a sample chapter to assess as part of the thesis. And we also asked for an open research statement because this prize is very closely connected to Open Research Week. So it was really looking to demonstrate or make a case for how either the project had benefited from the open research practices of others, or why there was an special importance or value in this particular project being published open access. And this was very important in determining the winner. So last year we ran the prize in its first year across all GW4 institutions. This year the prize was run here at Bristol exclusively. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Alison Oldfield, who's a lecturer in education here at the University of Bristol. We haven't been in touch. I know that Victoria and others at the press have obviously been very closely in touch with Alison, but I'm going to be very curious to hear what this experience has been like as it's been moving through the different stages. Alison's thesis was Going to the Farm, a doctoral study focused on the experiences of autistic young people in outdoor learning settings. And I remember the panel being very impressed by the quality and the originality of the work and the open research statement. It's now moving into a book, so it's been through that full commissioning and peer review process. I think the current publication date is for September 2026. And the book title is Outdoor Learning and Autism, Practices, Pedagogies and Possibilities. So I don't know if Alison is able to unmute and join me on screen.
I'm here, yeah. Hello.
Hi, Alison. Lovely to see you. I don't know whether you wanted to just start by talking a little bit about the book itself, so a little bit about it as a project, and perhaps a little bit about that experience of moving from thesis to monograph.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be here. So yeah, I mean, I'm in the process of writing at the moment. I mean, I'd have to say the whole process of working with the BUP and post kind of having been awarded this prize has been so supportive in trying to transition and think about how to turn a doctoral thesis into a monograph for, the purposes of open access research monographs. The whole process has been, challenging. in terms of thinking about how the ideas I developed in my thesis need a bit of refreshing, need a bit of rethinking, and the target audience changes a bit. So that's taken some reassessing, but the BUP staff, especially Isabel Baton, who's the editor I've worked with, has been brilliant at helping me think through, both the content of the monograph, the book, and also the process of that writing.
I'm delighted to hear it. Did you just want to explain for people on the call just a sort of overview of what the book is going to be about?
Right. So the thesis I did, the study I did, was an ethnographic study of a class of autistic young people who did an outdoor learning experience. So they went out to a farm for work experience once a week, and my study was following them on that journey once a week, to try and understand what happens when they go outside and learn in their interactions with the environment, the farm, the weather. So it was looking at the social and the material interactions of what happened when they went out to the farm. It was really driven, I think, by an understanding there are lots of benefits about spending time in natural environments, but these are really variable. So, it's not always positive to go out into these natural outdoor learning environments. And what I wanted to think about was, how do they take shape? What are the positive aspects of them, and how can those be made and produced and performed in ways particularly for autistic young people? So the book is really following very much of that journey. So some of the early literature review chapters of the thesis become the early chapters trying to understand the complexity of thinking about autism as well as outdoor learning, and then the relationship between those. And then peppered throughout are some of the vignettes, some of the stories that came out from the study itself.
Yeah, I remember reading them actually in your proposal. They were really lovely. Yeah, inspiring. So, but I mean, lots of people on this call are kind of interested in thinking about, how you kind of illustrate the value and impact of publishing open access, and certainly those that work in libraries like myself really want to find ways to make it feel kind of important and kind of powerful for researchers to think about doing something differently, maybe a publisher that they hadn't thought of before, or taking the plunge with something open access. So why particularly for your project did you feel it was important for it to be open access?
I think for me, while the monograph that I'm writing is aimed for mainly the research community because of the publishing contract that I have, the study I did, I think, also may have interest and value for people who are working across different fields. So practitioners, educators, people working in schools or organizations, maybe that are thinking about outdoor learning, relationships with the natural environment, forest schools. And, as I mentioned, that there can be lots of values about spending time in natural environments, about outdoor learning experiences, but we also know that disabled people tend not to access them in the same ways that non-disabled people do. So there are barriers to that. There's lack of equality in terms of ability to access these spaces. So for me, providing the findings from my study, providing some points of discussion, maybe some practical strategies around that, as widely as possible, felt really important.
Yeah, and was that a kind of motivator for you for actually applying for the prize? Again, they're trying to think about how we can promote the prize and encourage, and more generally on sort of across Open Research Week, the Open Research Prize. How did you kind of come across it, and what really kind of made you want to apply?
Yeah. Well, so I did my study back in I finished my PhD back in 2020, after quite a long part-time PhD journey. And I submitted my thesis and did my viva during the first lockdown, in and amongst, working part-time and having small children. So So on the back of that, my PhD in a sense kind of got swept under the carpet. I didn't, I'd wanted to think about publishing beyond that, but really just got swept up in all kinds of other things. So when I saw the prize, part of it was also, I think having that dedicated support as an early career researcher who hasn't been in academia for that long. The ideas of publishing a book, publishing generally, were a little bit of a maze to me, and they weren't kind of a landscape I was familiar with. So the information that was provided that, this was a guided and supportive experience where early career researchers can be supported, not only to think about how to publish their work, but also in a way that is more accessible and equitable to audiences. Yeah, that's really what drew me in.
That's really interesting to hear. Thank you. And I really am so pleased that it's been such a positive experience for you, and that the book is almost here. It's wonderful. Particularly actually now I know the full extent of just how difficult the late stages of your PhD were. That sounds like a lot. Home, young children, COVID, my word. So thank you very much, Alison, and I hope some kind of food for thought and some kind of encouragement as well for our prize winner this year. So I'm going to hand over to Victoria.
Thanks, Susie. And great to hear that too, obviously from my perspective, Alison, and I look forward to seeing the book published. We all get very excited when we finally get to that point, even working on lots of books, but it's always really nice to be able to share it with the author. And obviously we've been on an even longer journey, as yours started right at the beginning of the process. So yeah, that will be lovely. Isabel couldn't be here today, but I'm sure she'll also be feeling the same way. So I feel like this is the privileged position to get to be the person who announces the next winner, and I feel like I should, drum roll before I do my slide change. But it really, as Susie said, we had a great panel, but it was a privilege to get to be on it. And, I feel like that about my job generally, getting to read so much and hear about all the amazing research that's going on it is a real privilege. And, particularly in the areas we focus on, which Katie covered earlier, we do come across such important research and such great work that's being done, and people who are really passionate about making an impact with that research. And we really try to do what we can to help them with that. And open access is obviously a really great way of doing it. So yes, we were really impressed with the entry which has won this year's prize, in particular the quality of the proposal and the sample material we received, but also about the potential for the book to make a really important contribution. So I'm going to move slides so you can all see what I'm talking about. The title of the thesis was Ecological Hope in Times of Transition, Case Study of European Eco-Villages. And Vitaly is here with us today, so congratulations. It was really a really interesting proposal to read. And I think, again, linking back to what Katie was saying earlier, around the global social challenges and all those important topics that are being covered in so many ways, but I feel the environmental issues obviously are really key ones, and I think in particular this work also focuses on hope and agency in response to socio-environmental uncertainty, which I think was also a really interesting aspect of it, which we'll hear more about shortly. I think it also draws on really interesting empirical research, and I've included a few pictures on the slide with Vitaly's permission, just to give you a bit of a feel for that. But I will now hand over to her because I know that she'll be able to give a much better and more detailed picture for you all of the work and tell you a bit more about it. So if you're able to turn your camera on and unmute.
Yeah, can everyone see me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you, Victoria.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone at BUP and particularly the panel. I was really delighted with this result. I actually passed my Viva in January, so it's been quite a short turnaround between finishing that and kind of putting the PhD to the side and then thinking about next steps. So this to me felt like a perfect kind of transition activity. So yeah, to talk about the book. So the book proposal is really kind of situated in the context of environmental transition activities and thinking about different ways of addressing global challenges. But I'm really moving away from a focus on the kind of political, techno-scientific or economic avenues, which I think tend to dominate the discourse. So I'm looking intentionally at kind of grassroots social movements and the active role that they can play in creating feelings of possibility for the future. As mentioned previously, there's a lot of kind of conversation, be that in media outlets, schools and universities, or within just public debate about socio-environmental collapse. And we see that creating, really problematic instances of eco-anxiety and just a general kind of climate of despair and hopelessness. So I think these stories of hope are really, really important. And that's what I'm trying to kind of show with eco-villages, is that these kind of prefigurative sites that are actively building something kind of positively otherwise in the here and now, that they can be an essential site of hope. So I'm using the case study of European eco-villages, where I actually personally lived and worked for many years prior to coming back to academia. And I'm drawing on a rich kind of ethnographic study that I did during my PhD with many different participants in eco-villages. And also, as you can see, we did some kind of participant-led creative data collection, so lots of photographs that I've collected. And what I want to show is that these communities they're kind of demonstrating lived transitions, and that's kind of through different avenues. So one is the practice of going green. So that's, commitments to everyday lifestyle practices that are very low impact, be that cooking, cleaning, mobility, managing waste. And I'm arguing that really supports an ethos of environmentalism. There's also the kind of act of slowing down. So opportunities to come into closer contact and synchronization with non-human life, which I'm arguing is, it enables a kind of greater attention to non-human ecologies and a sense of retuning to their rhythms and their ways of being. And then finally, through acts of doing together. So eco-villages being these sites that are very collectively oriented, people live and work together, they share accommodation space, and that giving a sense of kind of solidarity and social networks that can alleviate the pressures to kind of tackle environmental harms. So I'm focusing on those as kind of three dominant initiatives in eco-villages, but I'm not kind of solely celebrating these movements. I'm also bringing a critical lens to think about how they can also exist as kind of privileged and bounded spaces that may worsen social divisions, they can exclude certain demographics, they can be divorced from wider society. So I think overall, what I hope to achieve with a book and building on my PhD is thinking about the kind of potentials and the problematics of prefigurative movements, but really contributing to that ongoing conversation, which I can now see with BUP is already happening, around how we can kind of foster resilience and optimism in the face of global uncertainty, but also making really clear the kind of justice-based considerations that we need to attend to as well when analysing sites of hope. Yes, that was a bit of a whirlwind introduction.
That was great.
That was clear.
Thank you. No, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to summarize so much work in a short space of time, but I'm sure people will be really interested to hear about that. And actually, we honestly did the slides before knowing who the winner was. And so actually that hope connection is really genuine. And I think it is really important to hold on to that in difficult times, as you say. Like there is a lot of great work and that grassroots activism and social movement side, we feel really passionate about showcasing that too. So yeah, to help encourage and bring different perspectives. I think there's obviously lots about it that's really obviously lends itself to being open access because of that. But could you maybe say a bit more about what really appealed to you about submitting to the prize and that open access side and what you're hoping from that?
Yeah, it was interesting. Before I found this opportunity, I'd actually watched an online talk with Tim Ingold around the SUP, so the Scottish University Press, where he discusses why open access is so important. And I really like his phrasing of it as kind of centering community over commercialization. And I felt that being being a researcher that's really interested in community spaces like eco-villages and the power of people coming together, that's what I want my research to foster as well. So thinking about the kind of overarching purpose of research being to, address global challenges and make the world a better place, I really felt that having everybody kind of equally informed and able to access information and knowledge plays a really, really big part in that. And also people being able to kind of engage in the conversation and feel included and part of the dialogue. That's really fostering a kind of, a citizenship ecology of research. So I think that was the key motivation, and particularly for eco-villages, I felt that the access to the research is really key for them in terms of the fact that they often don't come across academic material, or it sits behind paywalls and in obscure places. But also making clearer the kind of dialogues that are being made within academic spaces about them. So being a bit more transparent and visible about the kind of concepts and ideas that we're using to conceptualize these movements, and also around making the research more kind of useful and reproducible. So eco-villages themselves being able to identify, what kind of analysis is what analytical lens are being used to understand these movements, and how can they also be part of that debate or build on that analysis to enhance their impact. So I think it's about having, two-way conversations and making things very transparent and part of a kind of community of debate and conversation. Yeah, that's
Great. That's really really well put, and really just so well covers many of the things that we feel about open access and that value. And actually, I think those connections, maybe that is something that isn't talked about as much, how valuable that can be. But as you say, when it's not behind a firewall, it's much easier to make those. And, people who are not necessarily going to read the whole thing can look at parts of it. And I think in your open research statement in the proposal, you said about, some of those different groups like environmental education practitioners and civil society initiatives, and but also, just that, places that might be under-resourced, and the fact that students as well who might not necessarily have access to the institutional database or the library, being able to click straight through from looking online and things. I think all of those different ways of people connecting and coming together is really valuable. And yeah, I think I can see how your work definitely lends itself to that. So obviously the next stage for the process would be working with BEP on putting together the proposal, and we'll obviously follow up with you about that separately, but I think it'll be exciting to talk about it further with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to get started. And I actually know Alison, so I'm sure she'll be
there we go
as well to hear about the process and get tips from.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was really nice to meet you. So I think we've got a bit of time now for questions. Shall I pass back to you, Susie, to coordinate if there are any?
Yeah, we've got a few in the chat, and we have got a few minutes. So if you there is something you'd like to ask, please do pop it in the chat. So there's a question about how you decide your priorities. I'm not sure if that means kind of priorities. Reading the question, I think it's published. So there's asking whether the university has any input into the priorities of the press. And there's a specific question there about whether there are plans to publish on Palestine. But I suppose it's a more general question, isn't it, about, what control do you have over what gets published? Does it depend on what people approach you with? What role does the university play in setting those priorities? Do you commission anything? Yeah.
Yes, that's a great question. So it is we are independent in terms of deciding what we publish, and we have a process for how we decide which titles and which journals to sign up and which books to offer contracts on. We do have an editorial board, which is made up of members of the university who are part of the approval process. But it's a collective group, and we try and draw on as much expertise and input as possible. We also obviously peer review all of our proposals, so we've got that part of the process too. So it's quite a collaborative endeavour to decide what to publish, and actually it is quite difficult because there is a lot of great work out there that we could publish, and we do try really hard to think about where our strengths and reach are, and connecting with the people who are looking for that work. So we do sometimes say to people, actually another publisher might be more suited because we don't have a lot of publishing in that area, or we might not have that reach, and you're trying to connect with this audience, which we're less, or our current content is less in keeping with. But we've one thing that I will say is that we do try to have those conversations at an early stage and be really honest with authors and discuss things. We do get a lot of unsolicited reactive proposals sent in to us for books people want to publish, and we always try to consider them and get back to people as much as we possibly can. And then we also do go out and look for work where we feel like we've got a particular strengths in. We have our certain subject areas that we cover, and as outlined by Katie earlier, we have our particular focus on global social challenges. So we look for work which addresses these, and we might contact authors directly and ask them if they are thinking of writing something. So the editors in the commissioning team will do that, and they have sort of their strategies for the different lists. So I think in terms of the specific question on Palestine, I don't know of anything that's very specifically addressing Palestine that we've got coming up, but
we actually
do
in the journals department of the Victoria does book
I
lady
was just going to
journals.
say journals, yeah.
So we do have some content on Palestine in our journals. So obviously they're subject to peer review, the same as all of our other content, and they go through a really rigorous process to make sure they are academic in tone, they're not polemical. But yeah, we do have some interesting content. So if you search our site, BEP Digital, you'll be able to find that content, and hopefully that will be interesting for everyone. That we agree, obviously, it's one of the most important issues in the world today, and we need to reflect that with our publishing.
Yeah, and I wonder if, I think in terms of the book side, I was just going to say that it's definitely not because we don't want to publish. I think there's some fast changing elements at the moment where maybe journal articles are lending themselves to it being a better route for publication. But in the future, there may be books as well.
That's a really interesting point, actually, about what roles journals, what roles periodicals and articles and monographs play, particularly for you as a press, given the urgency. Palestine would be one, but there's lots of sort of some of the environmental crisis stuff as well, I think. And I can see other things on the horizon which may be in a similar vein. So I suppose it's about speed as well, isn't it? And interesting.
We do publish some short books with a faster turnaround, which actually also are quite so. If you noticed on Katie's slide earlier, there was one about repealing the abortion law, one that got published in record time actually because it was to get it out in time for the referendum. So I think sometimes, well, we do it as a default, but sometimes we're able to do it even faster. And I think because of our policy background and that kind of aspect of our publishing, we do get books out a bit faster than some publishers of books. But yeah, certainly then journals, especially with the speed to online publication, can be a bit quicker in some cases. Yeah.
There's another question from Rain, who I know is in the open access team here at Bristol. Hi, Rain. So it's talking about the diamond model, as often held up to be the most equitable publishing model, and asking what BUP are doing specifically to increase the number of diamond journals that are being published, looking at collective funding. And whether there are any plans to cooperate with other university presses, both things I think which are really on the increase, aren't they? Both of these approaches to thinking about publishing. It's journals that's mentioned specifically in the question, but I wonder whether it's worth talking about monographs as well in that respect.
That's true.
So, well, I can reply about the journals side of things. So yes, as Vitali said before, community over commercialization, and yeah, community funding for Diamond Open Access is the way forward. The issue is there's so many different initiatives that are cropping up at the moment for very good reason. And we want to make sure we're following the one that is going to be the most successful for us and the most tailored to what we do. So I think, as I mentioned before, our Global Social Challenges Journal. So we are currently looking for funding for that. We've already got to a certain amount, but we'd like to attract more. And that's through a US consortium of libraries and just general funders called Lyrasis, and it's through their OASIP funding program, Open Access Community Investment Program. So we're going with that. And then I know, also the Global Social Challenges Development Fund, we'd obviously like to use that for Diamond Open Access, so we're not charging authors who, as you know, social scientists are often less likely to have funding for open access, and obviously Global South authors as well. And then we do have some programs in books as well that Victoria can tell you about.
Yes, and we do try to think about the ongoing opportunities, and really it is still changing and new ideas are coming out, and so we've just been quite open to pilots and initiatives and just seeing what works best for both access and funding and sustainable funding as well. So I think there have been some collaborations across university presses, like the Open Up one that Susie mentioned earlier on the monograph front, and we do share quite a lot across publishers, particularly across some of the university presses that join together. But at industry conferences and things about ways to collaborate and think about the future for open access publishing. There's obviously lots of small open access presses that have started at universities that are doing things slightly differently, and obviously we are a more established press that also has different strands to our publishing, not just the research monographs. So we try to sort of bring that together, which is something a bit different about us. But we're still very supportive of those open access presses and some of the other initiatives that are happening. And we've been looking at ways that we can help support people who don't have open access funding, and ways that we can have our own fund to be able to open up those books that we think we would like to be open access, where there might not be funding. But it remains difficult, it's fair to say, because we would really like to be able to open up everything if possible. So I think we need to keep looking at the different ways and finding the best way forwards.
I think there's also a challenge for libraries here as well as for publishers as well. I mean, you mentioned the Open Up initiative. I think it shocks and disappoints a lot of librarians just how few of those collective funding initiatives meet the threshold that's being asked. And I think it's really something that libraries have to think about is who we're spending our money with and how we can transition some of those traditional materials budgets into spending money in a more progressive way. I think it's not, in terms of working out where to put your energy and your focus and your time is not just an issue for publishers. I think it's also an issue for libraries, because there's a lot to choose from out there at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
I don't think we've got any more questions, although Serinda said something lovely, which is really nice. So if there,
And it's
go on, Victoria.
it is always good to get feedback about, you know, the way that people are accessing our information and thinking about how to reach wider audiences. And I completely agree about the balancing misinformation. And, you know, that is also another great thing about open access, that, you know, high quality peer reviewed content can get to people who might otherwise be finding something else on the internet that is not as reliable. And so, you know, I think thinking about ways to get that content out there. We do things like policy briefings and things from our books, where we sort of produce digestible information about the key messages. And as has been shared in the chat, we have a blog and we do podcasts and things like that as well to try and disseminate. And we do that for all of our books, including the open access books. So equally, the marketing and kind of outreach across all the different things we publish across different books and journals and everything. So that helps.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? And it's that parity as well for researchers, isn't it? And feeling like open access gets the same attention, care, and time as all other publishing outputs. I can't see any other questions, and we're drawing closer to the hour. So I don't know whether Kate or Zosha wants to do anything by way of a wrap up before I draw us to a close.
Thanks, Susie. I guess just to remind everyone that there are still 2 more events on the Open Research Week calendar. So there's opening up publications, reflecting on the rights retention strategy, which is this afternoon at 2:15, and then tomorrow at 11 a.m. exploring the reproducibility of research publications, a reproducibility evaluation pilot, and those are both online. And I think tickets are still available if you would like to sign up and haven't already. Thank you, Kate. Kate's just popped the link to those in the chat. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Everyone.
Everyone.